Before America was mapped and claimed, it was a land of mysteries, of sky-aligned temples, vanished cities, and civilizations that defy explanation. In this episode of Ancient Dilemma, we uncover the hidden truths buried beneath modern America. Make sure to subscribe, because the past is deeper than you think. Ancestral Puebloans, Anasazi, builders of the cliff cities far to the southwest. The Ancestral Puebloans, once called Anasazi, built another remarkable civilization in today's Four Corners region. By the 11th century, they had densely populated the mesas and canyons of the Colorado Plateau. Archaeologists estimate as many as 30,000 people lived here, and they created great centers like Chaco Canyon's Pueblo Bonito, an 800-room, 5-story stone palace of the 11th century Chacoans, built an astonishing 400 miles of engineered roads radiating out to smaller communities, and embedded precise astronomical observatories in their architecture. Meanwhile, across the plateau, later Pueblo groups carved cliff dwellings into sheer canyon walls, as at Mesa Verde, building tight, labyrinthine villages of multi-room apartments into rock overhangs. These desert farmers grew corn, beans, and squash, and developed complex ceremonial religions whose gods were painted in rock art and their rituals played out in kivas, subterranean chambers. Yet almost overnight, by the late 1200s, something catastrophic happened. In the mid-13th century, the Ancestral Puebloans largely abandoned their homeland and migrated south and east toward the Rio Grande Valley. Archaeologists speak of a cataclysmic event that forced the cliff dwellers to flee. The evidence recovered from pristine ruins paints a grim picture. Signs of internecine violence and even cannibalism emerge in the last centuries of the Anasazi. Tree ring data and other studies reveal a mega drought from 1276 to 1299 CE, up to 23 years with virtually no rain in places. While drought alone can't explain everything, similar droughts occurred earlier without collapse. It likely strained harvests and resources. At the same time, fortified hilltop villages like Sand Canyon, over 400 rooms with high walls, indicate people expected war. In summary, by AD 1300, the ancestral Pueblo world of open villages and towering pueblos fell apart. Temples and towers were abandoned, families slipped away into the wilderness or joined other tribes, and the high cliff villages were left eerily intact, complete with the tools and grain of their builders, to be discovered centuries later by explorers. Hopewell, Adena, geometry and ritual in the Ohio River Valley. In the woodlands of the eastern U.S., a mysterious mound builder culture known as the Hopewell, circa 200 BCE to 500 CE, built enormous earthworks and flourishing trade networks, then faded from history. Centered in Ohio River valleys, the Hopewell are known today only through their incredible mounds and artifacts. They left no written records or rulers. Archaeologists note that, at their height, the Hopewells periodically gathered from tiny villages across great distances to erect elaborate structures, one basketful of dirt at a time, weaving geometry and astronomy into monumental earthworks. For example, 8 Hopewell sites near Chillicothe, Ohio, recently inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, include geometric enclosures so vast they could contain skyscrapers or coliseums. One Hopewell circle had a 1,200-foot diameter, and another octagon enclosed 50 acres precisely aligned to the 18.6-year lunar cycle. Their tombs contained finely crafted art, mica serpent effigies, copper cutout birds, and delicate pottery, brought from quarries in trade as far away as the Great Lakes and Gulf Coast. These hunters and farmers clearly had a continent-spanning worldview, despite no central government or writing. But by around 400 CE, the Hopewell style abruptly ended. The grand earthworks ceased to be built. Burials and sumptuous gifts vanish from the archaeological record. A provocative new theory from 2022 suggests a cosmic cause. Sediments at Hopewell sites show a chemical fingerprint of a comet or meteor airburst around 250 to 380 CE. Indigenous stories also speak of a horned serpent and sky panther raining destruction, mythic echoes of a fierce fireball. Such an airburst could have flattened forests, wrecked crops, and plunged the region into hardship. Afterward, rituals ceased and populations dispersed. In short, the once vast Hopewell ceremonial network quietly unraveled, leaving behind empty plazas, and silence. Today, parks like the Hopewell National Historical Park preserve the ghostly outlines of mounds, the last evidence of these vanished astronomer-engineers. Teotihuacan, Mexico's city of the gods. North of the Olmec heartland stood Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, in the central highlands of Mexico. Founded as early as 400 BCE and hitting its apex around 100 to 500 CE, this metropolis sprawled over 9 square miles. It was home to up to 150,000 to 200,000 people who constructed massive pyramids, notably the Pyramid of the Sun, 216 feet high, and Pyramid of the Moon, lining a grand ceremonial avenue of the dead. At its peak, Teotihuacan was a cosmopolitan trade hub. Researchers find its distinctive obsidian tools, pottery and architecture as far away as Mayan cities in Oaxaca, and it even influenced Maya stelae styles. The city had no known king's tomb, suggesting a possibly collective or religious governance. We do know it was wealthy and powerful. They controlled the valley's obsidian mines and built an enormous temple of the feathered serpent inside a gated citadel. Then, quite suddenly, Teotihuacan imploded. By about 600 CE, much of the city was in ruins. Archaeological excavations have found evidence of general unrest. Plazas and temples were deliberately burned, and iconoclastic damage occurred as if by mobs. Around 600 AD, a massive uprising, perhaps by the poor or rival elites, led to the destruction of murals and sculptures. Whatever the cause, internal revolt or outside attack, the result was collapse. By 750 CE, the city was completely abandoned, its grand avenues and palaces vacant, the population dispersed. For centuries, it became a sacred ruin. Ironically, the Aztecs later stumbled upon Teotihuacan's temples and assumed it was the oldest city, naming it the legendary birthplace of the gods. Today, the silent pyramids stand as a monument to an urban civilization that once dominated central Mexico, yet vanished into legend by the time of the first conquistadors, Tiwanaku. The sunken city of the Andes, on the high plateaus by Lake Titicaca in modern Bolivia, the city of Tiwanaku was once the heart of an Andean civilization. Flourishing roughly 300 to 1000 CE, Tiwanaku, sometimes spelled Tiahuanaco, controlled a domain of highland farmers and llama herders. They built grand stone temples, kalasasaya, pumapunku, and canals, and engineered raised field agriculture to withstand frost. At its peak, Tiwanaku was densely urban. Estimates suggest 10,000 to 20,000 people lived within its ceremonial center, worshipping solar deities. By the time the Incas swept through the Andes in the 15th century, however, Tiwanaku was already a ruin. Their society collapsed sometime around 1000 CE and was a ruin by the time the Incas conquered the Andes, says archaeologist Jose Capriles. How did Tiwanaku fall? The clues point toward climate disaster. South American tree rings and lake records show that after 900 CE, the Andes suffered prolonged droughts. Archaeologists even found 19 sacrificial female skeletons at Tiwanaku sites, apparently offerings to coax rain, indicating desperate attempts to end the drought. With harvests failing, the finely built stone temples went unused and the population declined. By 1000 CE, the once great avenue-lined plazas and megalithic gates, some weighing hundreds of tons, were abandoned. In that wind-swept land above 12,000 feet, only ruins remained. Today, new satellite archaeology still uncovers Tiwanaku's streets, and recent Newsweek reports describe how a newly found temple, Pala Spata, is helping researchers understand Tiwanaku's place in Andean history. But the central mystery endures. Tiwanaku was a fully formed empire whose collapse left almost no written record or survivor tradition, just stone and silence. The classic Maya collapse, the end of the glory of the rainforest far to the east. The Maya of southern Mexico and Guatemala once built one of the greatest ancient civilizations, filled with towering pyramids and written histories. Between AD 250 to 900, the classic Maya erected monumental cities like Tikal, Copan, and Palenque, wrote in hieroglyphs and refined astronomy and calendar science. Their temple complexes and palaces rank among the Western Hemisphere's largest and oldest constructed urban centers. Yet beginning in the late 8th century, the Maya world experienced a dramatic rupture. Over decades, Dozens of great Maya cities were abandoned. By about AD 900, the southern lowland region was largely depopulated. Temples were overtaken by jungle, and once bustling plazas lay empty. This Maya collapse remains the subject of intense debate. Many experts point to the same culprits as other ancient societies: warfare and ecology. Evidence of fortifications and mass graves suggests frequent conflicts between city-states. Meanwhile, pollen data imply the land was over-farmed. When an extended drought struck, fields failed. Some believe by the 9th century, the Maya had exhausted the environment. Others say constant warfare broke down dynastic authority. Finally, some suggest catastrophic environmental change, like an intense drought, wiped out the classic Maya. Whatever the exact mix, the result was clear. Kings lost their sacred mandate, rituals ceased, and people fled. Remarkably, though the grand cities fell silent, Maya civilization didn't vanish entirely. Northern cities like Chichen Itza and Mayapan later flourished, and Maya language groups survive today. But in the rainforest and lowlands, the loss was profound. Centuries of written history were buried, and only archaeologists would later painstakingly reconstruct even part of that story from carved stele and codices. In summary, the classic Maya remind us that even the most enduring empires can crumble, and that their remains become lost worlds for future generations to rediscover.